Welcome, everyone, to the 16th installment in our series of virtual conferences, Everything MDM, brought to you by EnterWorks by Windshuttle. Hello, I'm Kerry Young, VP and GM for the EnterWorks line of business for Windshuttle. Steve, next slide, please. In today's virtual conference, Adam Sigg and Steve Ruff from Infoverity will share with us some MDM best practices along with some specific use cases where best practices have been put into action. Adam is a global practice director with Infoverity. His expertise includes enterprise information management, multi-domain MDM, and data governance processes. Steve is also a global practice director for Infoverity. His expertise includes PIM, multi-domain MDM, and data governance. Adam and Steve, do you want to say hi to everybody?
Thanks, Gary. Excited to be here.
Great. Okay, so before we get started, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Windshuttle and EnterWorks, let me share a little bit about us. Steve, next slide, please. So Windshuttle is a specialist in data management and process automation. We offer an all-in-one platform for multi-domain MDM, PIM, and DAM, meaning that you can implement multiple domains of data on a single instance of our solution without installing any additional software. Our solution is highly configurable, meaning it can be implemented with little to no programming, and because of that, typically offers a very low total cost of ownership compared to other MDM solutions. Our solution can be deployed as a fully managed solution in the cloud, in your own private cloud or data center, and is rated highly by all of the industry analysts, including Forrester, who rated EnterWorks as a leader in both PIM and MDM. The only PIM or MDM solution provider is rated as a leader in both reports. Next slide, please. Okay, so Windshuttle has over 2,500 customers across the globe, and we work with leading manufacturers, distributors, and retailers in most industry verticals, including food, CPG, apparel, and home furnishings. Okay, it's my honor now to turn it over to Adam and Steve from Infoverity. Guys, please take it away.
All right, well, thank you, Kerry, and thanks to everybody for joining today. I hope you're all safe and well, enjoying working from home and hopefully enjoying a little bit extra time with family. This is Steve Ruff. Thank you, Kerry, for the introduction. I'll briefly just kind of summarize my role with Infoverity. I'm a practice director and responsible for our global solutions in the areas of PIM and product MDM. A little bit of my background, I've been working for 15 plus years, really in all things data management across the enterprise. That's multi-domain MDM, and certainly been focusing on the PIM and product MDM space for a good about 6-7 years now. I'll briefly pass it over to Adam as well, just to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Steve. Adam Sigg, very similar history to Steve. Have been working in customer-focused master data management for about 15 years across a number of industries and really focus on the journey and making sure initial releases drive value for our clients so that they can really apply and learn as they go and create the most effective enterprise information platform they can.
Great. So it's nice to be here today and talk a little bit about our experiences defining and implementing MDM programs, as Adam described. So a little bit about Infoverity. We're a team of information management consultants. We specialize in data management solutions in the areas of MDM, PIM, data quality, data governance, data integration, as well as analytics and cloud managed service offerings. Our mission is to simplify information and make it more useful and profitable for our clients, simply put. So over the years, we've continued to grow and now have offices throughout the US and Europe. We're headquartered in the great state of Ohio, just outside of Columbus. We've got an EMEA headquarters based out of Valencia, Spain. which includes our Global Development Center of Offshore Specialists, an advanced engineering group out of St. Petersburg, and then kind of an array of satellite offices across the US and Western Europe. We've delivered MDM solutions in really every major industry vertical, and we've listed a few of those at the top of the slide here. So we've seen a wide variety of implementation styles and use cases, and certainly learned a lot of lessons along the way, and we're happy to share some of those with you here today. So all right, let's get going, and I'm going to open the presentation with a set of guiding principles for your MDM success. So today, our focus is going to be on building your MDM journey, and not so much on the technical aspects of the implementation, although we're happy to dive into that. So we'll be talking about road mapping, ways to engage the business and align on your key objectives, building your MDM team, and of course, best practices along the way. So we'll get started by talking about road mapping and defining the constructs of your MDM program. My career, I've seen MDM evolve. I've seen, from terms like customer data integration, CDI, when that was the core focus of really deduplicating customer records, and before it was widely called master data in a multi-domain sense. And I've seen it evolve in both the technologies and the business capabilities, and the use cases that master data delivers. But also MDM has maintained its roots in a lot of ways, with some of the core values and principles that are still acting as the underpinnings of modern MDM solutions today. But more recently, we've seen the explosion in criticality of data, both for internal business users and external customer needs. That high quality data about your customers, your products, your suppliers, locations, assets, general ledger for finance domain and beyond. These data elements are required by stakeholders across that connected business process. And of course, the end customer, the individual at that point of purchase, whether it's a B2B or a B2C, they absolutely demand more than ever that enriched master data. So these become their experiences, their touch points, their interactions with the data. For example, that enables a sales user to know their customer and provide a rich product catalog, or entices that customer at the point of sale on the website to purchase that product, or drives additional insights for the business through analytics and reporting. So master data has evolved, right, to become that backbone, that digital foundation for these experiences. And this is how master data now is critical across the entire connected business process, and why we focus on delivering the right data to the right consumer at the right time on the right channel. Okay, and so a key driver that seems to be everywhere is customer experience, or digital customer experience. And there's no doubt that a customer's experience interacting with your brand or purchasing your products, whether that's a distributor, retailer, manufacturer, that's a top priority. But one key best practice in your MDM planning that we often highlight is to not lose sight of those internal business consumers, their experiences, how they interact and leverage the data on their daily jobs. So this is the data value chain, and that value chain extends across your business functions and spans enterprise processes. So, the MDM's ability to provide that master data to all the key consumers, again, both internal and external, and how integrated that MDM is with your key operational systems and channels, that is a key factor that can make or break your MDM in terms of whether it's seen as a success within your organization. And there's a maturity curve. So we often talk about a data-driven approach, but what does that really mean? It's really emphasizing the role that data plays in your organization, right? So that quality, that trusted data, that becomes the cornerstone for efficient business and commerce. So I always say you have to understand the data on a deep level. You have to swim in it. You have to know it up and down, backwards and forwards. The data will inform you or help inform you of some of those semantic definitions that will be the baseline to improve data quality and help you service that data to the business so they can leverage it and mature as they optimize processes and move to delighting their customers. So you may have heard the term of a digital foundation, right? So investing in your master data will provide that backbone to feed into enterprise systems and realize the goals that you've set forth for your organization. Okay, and you know, another cornerstone of MDM success is to have a plan, and that may sound simplistic, you know, but it needs to be a clear definition of what your ultimate destination is going to be, and that plan becomes your vision, that becomes your roadmap. So sometimes we call this the North Star, because if you know what your North Star is, then you can chart a course to get there. So what does a roadmap accomplish exactly? Well, roadmaps can serve a variety of purposes. I think everyone understands that a roadmap is going to lay out the general MDM project phases and the dependencies, you know, phase 1, phase 2, et cetera. But what's sometimes missed in that is that the roadmap becomes one of your best communication tools for your organization. It keeps everybody moving in the same direction. You know, so top down from executive leadership through all the business functions, through IT, you know, no one gets left behind. And all those voices are heard and incorporated into the MDM planning and value process. So, you know, that roadmap is used as a tool, you know, to build a groundswell, you know, to understand the who, you know, who are your key stakeholders and the owners of that master data, you know, is something that should guide your thought process and guide your planning as you evangelize the program throughout your organization. And think to yourself, what data is critical to the business? You know, where is the most pain? And conversely, where's the most value or the most opportunity to drive value? And following these principles will help you build a prioritized roadmap that is business driven and that will get you to really get your MDM program off the ground. Okay, and what MDM presentation would be complete without talking a little data governance? So as you're defining that vision and the framework for MDM, you absolutely need to look at that old adage of people, process, and technology, you know, or in this case, you know, data and technology. So how is that applied across key categories? You know, what defines data governance? So we've boiled it down to 8 key categories, spanning things like your integration, your data architecture, your organizational structure and human capital, you know, things like roles and skills, et cetera. And we're going to talk about that in much more detail later in the presentation. You know, your policies and procedures for data management across that life cycle, including third-party data, supplier data, you know, from external sources. Evaluating key data domains that are most important to your business, you know, could be sequential, first, second, third, you know, some could be implemented in parallel. What are the differences in data stewardship needs across those domains? Data ownership, metadata management, CRUD processes, create, read, update, delete, and systems of records across those domains. That integration architecture needs to be understood. And of course, you know, things like data quality are self-explanatory. You know, but last but not least, the technology. You know, how those tools, that modern technology supports your data governance organization and the processes that you've defined. You know, so identifying that kind of Venn diagram, intersection of how technology supports the people and the processes, that's going to really help you at this point in your MDM journey. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Adam, who's going to talk a little bit about multi-domain best practices.
Thanks, Steve. And really this kind of continues the theme of, right, there's a certain language to master data, just like there's a certain language to business. Business likes to talk about customers and supplier roles, likes to talk about entitlements and relationships. Technical solutions like to talk about parties and locations and accounts. And it's really the master data and governance job is to be the translation engine. It's through this overlap, through this cross-reference, that master data really adds value to an organization. And each of these has separate preferences, but when they're aligned, it allows frictionless process. So, right, the concept of a customer or a lead or an opportunity, right, that has to be driven by lead to quote and order to fulfillment. All of that drives to customer satisfaction, but each of these single domains add value, but if you do them in isolation, it's more of a conversion. Right? When you keep these business domains aligned in an ongoing way, that's what creates that frictionless value. That's what creates in return over time. And that's all based on a critical foundation and discipline, definitions, quality, and then being able to measure and escalate when they fall out of measure over time. So Steve, if you'll click on to the next slide, this is where the concept of the feedback or the refinement loop becomes critical. And this is how, right, we inform the process. Right? Data is driving experience, and you will learn through this cycle. And as those refinements happen, right, this engine runs more efficiently, more smoothly. It can handle more workload. And coming back to the theme of North Star, every different challenge a center of excellence takes on will have a different bearing. It'll have a different path to achieve that vision. What works in North America will not work in Asia Pac. What works in Eastern Europe will have to change to make it work in Western Europe. This is where this center of excellence, aligned to that North Star, iterates through all the challenges, sets the priorities, and this is the foundation that allows this program to be successful, not just beyond a conversion effort, but to really make sure this information, this foundation of value is leveraged across business processes. They rise above the needs or the squabbles within a business process or a line of business, and they drive what is consistent. And this is how, right, center of excellence rises above, but it adds value within each line of business, each business process. Steve, back to you, I think, for our next level down, drill down.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so how do we define that center of excellence, right? How do we accelerate time to value? How do we get that machine humming, you know, as Adam was describing, right? So this is where the rubber meets the road. So you've set your vision, your roadmap is in place, your business is engaged, and now it's time to execute, right? So in the middle, your framework has been defined. You've got the building blocks for managing the MDM program. So we look at things like governing the program overall. So executive alignment, you know, cultivating that roadmap, communication playing across all the stakeholders that exist, whether they're informed or whether they're you know, truly you know, active in terms of the management of that data and the ownership of. You know, people and roles, you know, with a keen eye on training and enablement, you know, of both technical and business sides. So those technical administrators, the business users, those data stewards. And then you look at things like organizational change management. So addressing questions such as, you know, how will this new way of managing master data change the business process, change the way our organization thinks about tapping into that data. And of course, delivery management, if you look at execution on project phases. And then from a technical platform perspective, you know, servicing the business, you know, how this team supports the business is often capability driven or service driven. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit more detail shortly. And on that note, you know, you have the phase delivery releases. So this is the execution track, right? So now we're implementing the MDM solution, and we're, you know, quote unquote, making real on those ROI promises that we've set forth to the business. You know, so then at this point, as you look at, you know, what is that target state? So that center of excellence state where you've achieved your original objectives, set forth in the vision and the roadmap. And now the MDM platform is managed as a living, breathing application that continues to adapt and support the business as change occurs. And we all know that change is inevitable. So it has to be managed from that perspective. And lastly, the roadmap, in our experience, is not a set it and forget it kind of thing. Typically, there's a request backlog that needs to be groomed and maintained. So managed in Jira or some other ticketing system that would include enhancements, requirements, you know, tweaks from an automation perspective, bugs or incident tracking, major version upgrades of your software, as well as larger items that need to be woven back into that roadmap. And so, you know, this becomes that refinement loop that Adam touched on a minute ago, and that becomes really important. You know, in terms of you know, making sure that the MDM platform is evolving with your business and continuing to support you know, the different needs that are out there. Okay, so we're going to dive into a little bit of cloud and the role of cloud and how that's evolved over time, as well as you know, a key roles matrix that Adam's going to touch on as well. So we've all seen the shift to cloud. And it continues to gain steam, you know, and for good reasons. So being able to offer your MDM capabilities, you know, quote unquote, as a service is compelling, especially to the business. And oftentimes that can be a cost-effective option for them. You know, so there's key reasons for this, right? There's a lot of moving parts to your MDM program. You know, keeping the MDM successful over the long haul, you know, can be complex and takes care and feeding. So, you know, we've been talking today about roles, skills, domain knowledge, setting that vision and plan. Those architect level skills, for instance, to continue to sustain that over time, they can take time to mature in-house. And what's more, you need a resource pool that has a diversity of skills. And let's say things like workflow development, data quality rule development, API integration development, and so forth. But you don't always need a full-time resource, focused on a single skill set. So that's going to ebb and flow. It's going to spike and valley. So same with the technical skills required to manage that hosted platform. So building that patchwork of skills and enabling your connected team becomes a key consideration when you look at a cloud managed service offering. And a lot of those cloud service providers are built to address this. Adam's going to talk about some of those key roles on the next slide. But more considerations around cloud are being flexible and scalable. So it's certainly easier to spin up, spin down, add additional sizing to help with performance. And whether you manage that environment on your own or you leverage a partner, you need to evaluate your SLAs, with the business and come up with an adaptive and a responsive team. We recommend you identify a single point of contact. We've used the term service delivery manager. That is there to dedicated to support the business, groom and prioritize requests, and support release management aspects as new capabilities are rolled out. And so if it's done right, this support team can actually help your business be iterative, be agile, as they gain new capabilities around automation, data governance, quality, integration, and beyond, and they're going to improve your MDM. On the other hand, if it's under-defined or under-resourced, it can come back to bite you pretty hard. And so that's a lesson learned around MDM programs that I've seen where it was once successful out of the gates, and sometimes I've seen them die on the vine when that team wasn't built with that long-term success in mind. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Adam to dive into some of the roles across the program.
Thanks, Steve. The point of this slide is to not overwhelm. It's to clearly communicate that governance and master data takes a village, but it doesn't take the entire village all the time. There are very critical roles. Some of those roles, particularly as you go up kind of the structure, are very high value, but very infrequent interactions. They set the vision, they start to set the strategy, and that drives activity as you go down to task, role, and team level. Right? The objective is to set the priority, align on terms or drive compromise and tie breaking so that the organization has the right set of definitions, the right set of procedures that the execution team can then run to and drive value down into the platforms and the processes. As you go down the chart, right, you have a lot more specialization, whether that's in a process or a domain like architecture, or at the very bottom, you've got the bits and bytes where people actually activate technology to support the entire business process. How Infoverity aligns to this is we guide and advise at the top. We'll provide strategic roadmaps and help folks understand the difference between a customer and a customer that needs many accounts and why that can be confusing or add risk to a program. And then we can augment and support shoulder to shoulder as you go down the pyramid and say, look, some of these programs need to have dynamic capacity, and that's how we align. We all not only guide, but we also do. And that is really a clear picture of, right, this is everything you need for a successful program, but it's not 25 FTEs. It is really I have this individual and they can play that middle tier through 2.5 roles here or there. This is roles, not humans. And that's a very clear indication to make is each of these roles is important, but they don't have to be full time. And that's where some of the scaling of Infoverity and your partners can really help you achieve outcomes faster than if you were to trying to take it on solely on your own. Steve, if you want to click to the next slide. And really just wanted to end my content on this, what is an oversimplified slide, but really is designed to be a cautionary tale. It serves to remind that there's a balance. Master data technology can do bad things quickly if you're trying to just speed up what you're doing today, right? Doing the same thing faster is almost the definition of insanity. Make sure that you're coming at from a governance focused approach. What is the right definition? When we're deduping, are we getting the right result? When we're aggregating across the hierarchy, are we getting the right result? And then once you have the right results, that's when you speed things up with a platform, right? You want to go from preventing 50 duplicates a month to 50,000 duplicates a month. So just kind of a reminder, governance defines what is right. The platform speeds it up in a way that only a machine can to really drive value into the business. Steve?
All right. Well, thank you, Adam. And that concludes, the documented pieces of the presentation. So I think at this point, we're going to open it up to additional questions that you might have and pass that back over to Carrie.
Great, thanks guys. Yeah, great presentation. I liked, Adam, how you just finished it in terms of talking about governance and defining your governance, but then allowing computers and automation to essentially speed it up. I think that makes a lot of sense. Are there any big lessons learned that you would like to highlight that in terms of your experience in implementing MDM?
Yeah. This is Steve. I can go ahead and go first.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd call out, maybe think big, act tactically, right? So we talked about the North Star and having that vision, but we're talking broadly, but it's really important to think of things on the execution side and thinking of crawl, walk, run. That can be a bit of a cliche, but but there is true value in that in terms of keeping everybody engaged, right? So the executives, as they sign off from a funding budgetary perspective, they want to see results. They want to see incremental progress towards those goals. So, and certainly the stakeholders, if you've got, multiple constituent groups, you've got your sales, you got marketing, certainly IT's at the table, you've got finance and others, they want to understand that their voice is being heard and that they're seeing progress towards, what they care about. So, so certainly I'd say being able to execute in short bursts is going to be really important. From a lessons learned perspective.
Yeah, and obviously you've probably seen over the years companies make missteps or do the wrong thing during the implementation. What are some of those missteps, and how can our audience learn from those mistakes?
One critical call out would be is the process of making definitions has to start at an academic level. It has to be a conversation in a conference room or a virtual conference room, and then kind of what is the idealistic definition of a customer, but then take the time and a little bit of elbow grease to test that definition against the data. Do it during discovery, do it during your roadmap, don't do it during testing for the deployment. Because what you'll find is the idealists will get in there and define the perfect definition, but then the conversion or the migration effort for how we translate the current reality data into the future wonderful data is 10x the effort or 10x the business rules that we thought we would need to automate. So test those definitions against real data with some data profiling early. That's the ounce of prevention that will cause you not to spin during delivery.
And I'm guessing Infoverity can make sure that as you're going through that initial definition, that you're thinking about these things staying on track, so you don't save it all for testing.
We don't like nervous testers either. So absolutely, yeah. We've got the industry templates, we've got the common definitions that have proven successful, but everybody's got their own special sauce. Like some people don't care about VAT tax, but they do care about different currency codes depending on where they're doing business with their customers. So absolutely, that's part of the playbook.
Thanks, Steve. Any other things that you've seen gone wrong and awry, and what you suggest to make sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah, I would say you really need to look at things end to end across the entire process. So that life cycle of data, I've seen a lot of companies make that mistake that they can simply kind of aggregate or consolidate, whether it's a single view of customer or building a centralized master product catalog, whatever the domain we're tackling, that they'll focus on just kind of consolidating that data, and they're focused on registry or consolidation use case, and they kind of lose sight of all the different systems of record, as well as the consumption points of that data. So whenever we engage in these types of projects, again, it's important to execute tactically, but you really need to understand across the full life cycle of data, where is it originating, where is it going to be mastered and centralized, and then where are those points of consumption. And if you don't understand that, it can really drive the program into a kind of an IT-led initiative, and that right there, I think, is something that needs to be avoided. That you really need to have the business at the table.
Got it. Thank you. Makes sense. And is there a recommendation or best practice for where you start? Which domain you start with, and sort of which order that you would go in terms of implementing different domains?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And the reality is there's no real hard answer there. We talked a lot in this presentation about aligning priorities and understanding kind of two key things, business value. So what is important to your business? What is going to drive ROI and help them service their customers, drive revenue, upsell, conversion, et cetera. And secondly, pain points. What works, what's working well, what's not working well today. If there's a high level of manual processes out there, if there's an army of stewards that have been built up to kind of muscle the data over time, that can get very convoluted pretty quickly. So really those types of questions and the answers to them are going to drive which domain is going to be most important or pertinent to your business out of the gates. I've seen it really all different ways. I've seen product leading to customer, know your customer set of use cases and delivery. I've seen a single view of customer enabling the business to then focus on which products the customers own. So we've seen it a variety of ways. I don't think there's any wrong answer, but I really think that it comes down to the way that the business evaluates the value and the pain points that they're trying to address.
Thank you. And I guess while your customers and Infoverity is sort of dealing with out of the new reality of COVID-19, what have you been seeing out there in terms of customers and how they're responding to it? And is anything changing from an Infoverity perspective in terms of how you have to support these customers?
I would say that yes, we are certainly changing the way we support our customers. I think the biggest impact I've seen of COVID, and we work with a wide variety of industries, right? So not all industries have been impacted the same way, as we know. But I think what is probably a core theme of shift has been to look at that digital selling channel. So and that applies to B2B and B2C. We've seen retailers, we've seen distributors, manufacturers that may have been making incremental investments on their online product catalog and looking at things like, can we go direct to consumer? Can we shift from being a B2B company to a B2C and create that additional revenue stream? We've seen that accelerate. They've really ramped that up. They've actually taken a lot of their business and IT resources and kind of redirected them to focus on things like, okay, can I have stores today and I've been using my storefronts, but those are closed now. Can I pick up from curb? Can I ship from store? Can I basically turn my stores into a distribution center? So again, there may have been some incremental progress there, but it really doubled down as the reality of COVID started hitting. So I think that's probably how we've started shifting our focus, is just saying, hey, do we need to realign priorities, in terms of what was being implemented, and we've done that in a variety of cases.
Got it.
Yeah, Gary, if I can hop on real quick. I mean, it's just another lens on top of the master data. So in the past, it was always, right, where is the hurricane headed? What customers do we have in Texas? What customers do we have in Florida? Or right, where is the impact to the building industry? So we just see a different set of industries or regions that our customers are desperate to know, right? Where is it going to happen next, right? Automotive right now, where we need to know everything we know about where our customers are in the automotive segment. And that's master data and driving that critical industry segmentation and geographic segmentation. So that helps us understand, impact analysis, not just for opportunity, but also risk recognition or risk avoidance. It's just yet another lens that folks are putting over their master data to help them manage their business.
Super interesting. I didn't really think about that. So if I'm a company and I want to have that perspective and I need it to survive, is it, and I don't have an MDM practice in place or an MDM program in place, can I get up and running quickly and start getting those perspectives, or is this going to take me a year or two until I can do that?
And that's where we like to prescribe the crawl, walk, run. I mean, we love to start out with a tactical data set, right? Get yourself up and running, get a consistent, proven definition, get some enrichment in there, and then you've got accurate identification, you've got accurate segmentation, and you've got accurate geographies. That helps front office and back office, and that's not boiling the ocean. What is different there is we're putting it in as we can refine it, we can scale it, we can grow it. It isn't just a one-time conversion, because that's only valuable one time. So excellent question. That is, yeah, you can start fast, but you start narrow and just kind of grow it and harvest from it over time.
Makes sense. Hey, there's a question from the audience, and they're interested in EnterWorks training, e-learning, certification, and, in terms of MDM, PIM, and DAM. Is that something that Infoverity offers?
Yeah, absolutely. Our training, I'd say we always espouse that you definitely look at kind of the product training that's offered by EnterWorks. There's value in that to understand kind of the constructs of the software. We can provide that as well, but there's value in that. But a lot of our training is really focused on kind of a day in the life. It looks at the business process, the workflow that we've built, the data quality rules as they're executed, either automatically or in ad hoc fashion. The user interface that we've configured for the stewardship process, those things kind of in live action. Our training is always tailored towards that. We want to be very impactful to those business users, and the system users, as they have to kind of take the reins and then really start cranking out authoring and maintenance and publication, syndication of that data. So absolutely, we certainly provide a wide range of training services that fits those different niche skills, right? Again, workflow, quality, integration, all things in between.
Okay, super. Any last words for our audience before we break?
Oh gosh, I don't.
Any words of wisdom? It's
Gosh.
okay if you don't have it. It's okay if you don't have anything. I'm putting you on the spot. So.
It's been great. I appreciate everybody's time. I think one thing I'd mention is that we didn't dive into the technical aspects too much, and that was intentional. We wanted to talk about building the MDM journey, but certainly don't lose sight of those technical aspects. They are critical. There's no doubt. You have to make the platform map to the business process. And so EnterWorks is a phenomenal tool for doing that. It can really be malleable to the business needs and the different data uniqueness that's out there. And don't lose sight of that. That's going to be very important.
Appreciate it. Yeah, Infoverity has some of the brightest people in the industry, and I think just sitting through this presentation, I think everybody heard that as well. So thank you for joining us today.